Hello villagers, welcome to your body. I hope that you use this month, these 30 days, as a challenge for you to have an experience with your body, to get a little bit more of an intimacy, a little bit more visceral contact, a little bit more feedback that you are paying attention to and listening to, and then responding to. So when you learn to really have this dynamic relationship with your body where you really feel into its subtleties, and so you start to hear maybe when there's an imbalance as the body whispers, then waiting and ignoring and denying and rejecting until the body is screaming that you have no choice to be in emergency crisis mode in trying to recover, heal. So I want to give us an opportunity this month to really go into our body and to go into our central channel around which we are aligning. Central channel and radiant heart, these internal places of alignment, we go first and foremost. And then we reach and we dig in. And when we have that those places of push-pull, of inward rising up in vertical and outward pushing from the center in every direction, and then the extension of the arms and the strength of the legs, right? We have an incredible opportunity to be dynamic with every area of our life. And so this is not just about exercise. This isn't about putting yourself into a 60-minute class. My friends, this is about living moment to moment, how you actually walk on the earth. Simple as that. Not easy. So we're getting into our bodies, and as we move into this first week of our experience of the Bowspring, an experience of radial health, an experience of using essential oils in every area of our life as an integrated web, and just an experience of how do we create this beautiful network of uniform value, of uniform effort, of uniform tone in love, in finances, in body, in mind, in heart, in exercise, in food, in all of the layers of our lives, that we can really grow and elevate proportionally, and we find new baseline, and then we grow proportionally and we find a new baseline. And as you give yourself that opportunity to steadily grow upward and outward, forward and up, you're able to really be in a constant evolutionary experience with your own life. You are pushing the needle forward in your own life. What's wrong with that, right? I'd take it. I would lean into that capacity to really be in control from the center out, not from a brute force, external hardened strength by any means, but a dynamic push-pull play with all of life around you. So when we start with going into the body, you obviously see I'm moving. I'm light on my feet. I'm moving back and forth. My heels aren't even really touching when I'm getting into this shape. I'm getting ready. I'm getting into the ready stance where I've got my knees bent, my hips back, and a fully long belly supported by an inflated or an expanded or a helium balloon opening of my rib cage so that my head can float up as well. So there's this lightness in the upper body and a dynamic power and strength in the lower body. But for this first start, what I want us to do is slow things down, because in order to get to that point where we feel good in all of our joints, mobile and dexterous, we have to know how to support the weight across the body. We have to know how to really lean into certain areas and to strengthen areas that maybe you're a little bit less awake because of our tendencies the other 23 hours of the day that we're not practicing. And this is why Bowspring is so great, because we're not separating our exercise anymore. We're integrating our lives so that how we exercise is actually how we live. How we tone our mind when we sit in meditation is actually how we think throughout all of our days. How we tone our breathing, right? Not trying to go to these deep, full, expansive breaths, but how we breathe when we write emails. How about that? To live radially. So it's not about separating yourself. So we'll get to that point of nimble. We will get to that point of ready to run and jump and hop and spring and invert and twist and fly. But first, we have to start with the basics. And so letting ourselves be humble enough to learn something, and I mean really learn, which means you have to unknow, you have to unlearn, you have to let go of what you used to think about good alignment or good strength or what you're capable of. That's a big one. You have to let go of what you thought you were capable of in order to be able to push past to the next level. This is what we're going to do this week. find a space where once, twice, 3 times a day, if you can make it, you go and do what we call recovery pose. You can think a lot just in that experience of, all right, what's recovery pose? What does that even mean? That word, that idea, that experience of recovering, of bringing yourself to a point where you can see, as an athlete would after a fast race or after an intense moment, an extension of the chest so the lungs can expand, and then a support, the legs back wide to give the space for the breath to open. And so recovery pose is a quintessential supportive shape of the bowspring alignment, because you can actually use the leverage of your arms and legs to create the long belly, so long as you're reaching for the double S curve along the back spine. And so as we come into recovery this week, it's to find breath, to find space on the inside, and to find our double S curvature with the lightness, maybe even in the spring of the paw of our foot in our bowspring template. So my hands are in a horseshoe, thumbs inside, fingers more to the outer knee, and I bring them forward to the front thigh, and as I do, I resist my knees coming forward, but I bend quite deeply. And as I do, I'm able to start to sit back further and tone the back of my legs. Now, in some capacity, it's really easy to lean back and almost even straighten the legs, and the weight goes into your heel. So I want you to step maybe wider so you can feel a little more ease in bending your knees, but sitting way back as you do. And as you do, you'll start to feel a little hamstring tone. Now, if you have any tightness in your low back, maybe, I don't know, you sit at any point of your day, then you're gonna feel some things going on back here, my friends. A lot of people come in to have in the past, I will say, we're so much more refined and finessed in our teachings of this practice. But when you look at the low back curve and when you go for it really strongly at the very, very beginning, you can really squeeze your low back and kind of anticipate that it's the practice's fault and that it's not good for you, or blame it on something that's not quite necessarily the source of your pain or discomfort. There's a bigger lesson in that, but when you can come into the experience of why is my low back hurting suddenly, and is it because I'm actually not supported fully yet, because my muscles just haven't woken up in fill in the years that we've been sitting at a desk, yeah? And so you have to give yourself time to allow these low back muscles to wake up, to open and actually move into, when I say open, really glide, become more malleable instead of hard and rigid, so that as they become more fluid, really, they're able to move back into the natural curvature and move into a relationship with the spinal vertebra instead of being pulled off the natural curvature of the track that our spine is meant to be. And as you do, as the hips move back and you feel the skin move in, the muscles lay softly into the lumbar curve, your arms are here not to give you something to collapse into, right? You're supporting yourself by pressing into the toes and making sure as you bend quite deeply, the knees don't push past the ankles even, really, the middle of the foot. You keep the hips pretty far back. And then as you move the hips even a little side to side to give yourself more space one side at a time, because we all know each side is a little different along left and right channels. It's a really important part of our practice. And we just move ourselves side to side so that we can feel our ribs move long away. And I'm just pressing my hands and my knees together and even coming up onto fingertips, a little dome hand as I lean away from it. And I'm finding my breath. So the arms are not a place where you collapse and sink, but instead, with a supported floor and the root of the thighs and hips behind you, the low back relaxes the more you are able to fill the back of your rib cage. And I don't mean to round yourself fully like you would sit at your desk. A lot of us go into a forward flexion in a yoga class or any exercise class that asks you to touch your toes, really. When you try to stretch your hamstrings, A lot of people are coming at it, many people are coming at it like this, with a rounded spine. And so that pulls tissues more off the general shape of the bone, which leaves less room for fluid connection and more dexterity and suspension, what we're calling tensegrity. Well, it's coined a term. This is Buckminster Fuller's term, but that's how we really relate to the body in Bowspring, is that it is tensegrity that we're working with. And that's another conversation we'll get into. But again, it's this using this capacity to create the suspension of the ribs rising instead of shrinking and collapsing. And so that's one of the bigger pieces of Bowspring, is the radiant heart is always pushing full wide and away from the earth. So I'm never just sinking down to gravity. I've got the support of my heart full and encased with an expansion on all sides, that I'm light through my upper body and ribs. My head is free, my neck is long, and the belly, the neck, narrow in and push energy up through the spherical shapes of the heart, hips, and the head. Down and through the crown, you find that recovery pose can give you a sense of really strong foundational support behind you, with your legs toning, and you can even lift and lower your heels to get a little uniformity strong up the back of the legs. Try to feel like, I call it a skinny jean effect, rising up to the back, pushing the glutes back, so the whole leg is like a sheath into the bone. And with the butt back, you're ready. You're in that dynamic place. But you can keep this in recovery pose for this week. And again, we're doing this just like 2-3 times a week, or 2-3 times a day, excuse me. You don't want to do it less than that. You want to really try to bring it into, all right, if this becomes something, like just propose to yourself that this could become something that you do for the rest of your life. What if you found a way to exercise, you found a way to sit at your desk, you found a way to walk, lay down, sleep, and it worked across all areas? Wouldn't that be worth it to take a month or 2 months to try and learn it at the beginning? Think about it. So in recovery pose, hands to knees, butt back, you let the belly start to open, and the breath. And if you can let your breath, and I mean really let it come into its fullness and be present with its depth and all that rises from there, you're able to find a little more space in your heart, which will sustain that energy as it moves, and then channel it out as you breathe and release. But the heart stays full. And so the energy will open and move into the belly, and you want to make sure that you don't just collapse with its weight. It can be powerful, it can be strong, it can be painful even as it opens. We have tightened and gripped, we have guarded. And so as we give ourselves the chance to really let this belly go and extend away from our foundation, knowing we've got ourselves and we can be light with it, our heart really is so big, bright, wide, and compassionate. It's so open and accountable for its own lightness, for its own ability to stay big in the face of contrast. That's what allows us to let go of maybe what we've been holding on to a little bit too long. Now in time, we're going to open up a lot of areas in the body. We're going to open up places where we've been holding just a little bit too tightly and restricting energy to flow, to move, to pulse. So when we start with recovery pose, you give yourself a chance to tap just the belly, the breath, and feel the support of your legs and your arms as you then open this deep center between the floor and the crown of your head. So as you give yourself a time again, feet wide, hands to thighs, you sit back. You let the knees stay just in front of the ankle, or maybe even behind midfoot, not past your toes. And you sit to find the strength even up both legs all the way as your glutes rise in and up. You feel the support. You feel powerful for the ribs to stay light. And this central column in the center of the pelvic floor opening back and wide, and the belly tapering, the rib cage pushing out on all sides. This long central channel is as open and spacious as the connection of your neck. And so as you allow the neck to inflate, the head gets lighter itself. And it's feeling that support of you can press back and open the front body. You know that you have this toning strength along your own back, strong and supported, and the curvature is still there to be dynamic, to stay open in your experience with life, rather than hard, rigid, and strong bracing out of preparation for impact in life. And that's what radial health is as well, is experiencing this capacity to really create growth in every area of your life and to stay open as you prepare for what is next, and to stay dynamically ready to experience it and be in the flow with it instead of being in resistance, hardening and cutting some of ourselves out or off from this world. When we cut off, when we deny, and when we shut down a certain area, it is still alive deep. And as we wake it up, we are able to bring ourselves back into our own dimensionality. Let's be 3D, 4D. Let's expand into the next experience of human. Practice this recovery pose and give yourself a chance to expand the ribs, the hips, even the head wide open, to elongate the places in between as you root into the earth and reach. Even with your hands to knees, you reach through the head and through the neck, and you feel yourself get longer and lighter, and the breath can go big and wide, really making space to release the old and to hold for the potential of what is yet to come. Recovery. Bring yourself back. How many times can you commit to this? Every day. One posture. Light on your feet, bent knees, supporting yourself, and finding the curvature that allows you to hold yourself uniformly on all sides of your life. Be accountable to even the places that you can't see. And hold an intimacy with that invisible. Hold a deep sense of wanting and yearning to know your capabilities and to let those from the deepest push out to the furthest edges. Find yourself in recovery 3 times a day, more so. Find your breath, bend your knees, and stretch yourself apart and feel that capacity to fill in to all of the places in the darkness of your back heart, to bring yourself to a well-rounded experience of love and acceptance, and to be dynamic in order to welcome life as it comes. Bring it in and find yourself growing and evolving as you interact with all of its glory. Don't close, don't shrink. And if you have, forgive yourself, because yes, you'll likely do it again, but now you have a way to recover. We have a true north we can return to again and again and again, where when you feel like you've slouched a little, you've slumped a little too long, you know you can come back to the very center of you, push the hips back and wide, and let the energy flow up and out through your crown. You deserve it. The world needs you. Try this recovery pose. Let me know what you think. Get back to me. Let's keep doing this practice. Little by little, you can start to make it a lifestyle. So excited to share this journey with you. All the love. Namaste. See you soon.